the quiet town of Willow Creek, Georgia, everyone knew Tun's tailoring. The old shop sat at the corner of Maple and Elm, its windows filled with dusty mannequins in faded suits. But on this particular sticky summer evening, something unnatural walked in. A man on a battered motorcycle pulled up, a large black duffel strapped to the back. He hauled it inside like it weighed nothing. "Got something special for you, Tund?" the man muttered. Inside the bag was a wedding gown so red it looked like it had been dipped in fresh blood. The fabric shimmered with an almost hypnotic quality under the shop lights. Intricate gold embroidery snaked across the bodice like veins. Even Tund, who had seen thousands of dresses, felt his breath catch. "Damn," he whispered, running his fingers over the silk. "This one's different." The next afternoon, Amina Diallo stepped into the shop, glowing with excitement. The 24-year-old elementary school teacher was getting married in 10 days. "Tund, I need something that makes me feel like a queen," she said, smiling. Tund's eyes gleamed. "I think I have exactly what you're looking for, Amina." He brought out the crimson gown. The moment Amina saw it, she was mesmerized. She tried it on in the back room. When she stepped out, even Tund's assistant froze. The dress fit her perfectly, almost too perfectly, hugging her figure like it had been sewn onto her body while she slept. "I'll take it," Amina said immediately. "How much?" "For you, $800. She paid without hesitation. As Amina left carrying the dress, Tund stood at the door with a strange, satisfied smile. That night, strange things began. Amina hung the gown on the back of her bedroom door. Around 3:17 a.m., she woke up to the sound of soft laughter. She sat up in bed. The dress was swaying gently, though all the windows were closed and the AC was off. She told herself it was just her imagination. The next evening was the engagement party at her family's house. Amina decided to wear the crimson gown for the occasion. When she walked into the living room, everyone went silent. "Baby, you look stunning," her fiancé, Kwesi, said, but there was a slight hesitation in his voice. As the night went on, Amina's behavior grew stranger. Her smile became wider than natural. She barely blinked. When Kwesi leaned in to kiss her cheek, she suddenly grabbed his wrist so tightly it left bruises. "You really think you deserve me?" she whispered, her voice sounding like two people speaking at once. Kwesi laughed nervously. The guests tried to brush it off. But when Amina's mother, Fatoumata, brought out drinks, Amina slapped the tray out of her hands. "Enough of this fake celebration," she snarled. Her eyes had changed. The warm brown was now pitch black. Chaos erupted. Kwesi tried to calm her. Amina grabbed him by the throat with unnatural strength and slammed him against the wall. "I hate weddings," she hissed, her voice no longer her own. "I hate love. I hate all of you." By midnight, Amina was tied to her bed with thick ropes. She thrashed violently, screaming obscenities in a language no one recognized. Deep cuts appeared on her arms and legs even though nothing was touching her. Fatoumata, terrified, called a local spiritual healer known in the community, an old man named Baba Suleiman. When Baba arrived and saw Amina, his face went pale. "This is not a regular spirit," he whispered. "This is something that feeds on stolen happiness, especially marriages." The exorcism began. Baba placed 4 black candles around the bed and began chanting. The moment the prayers started, Amina's body arched so violently the wooden bed frame cracked. The crimson gown, still on her body, began to smoke. "Get it off her,"
Baba shouted.
The moment Fatoumata touched the dress, Amina let out an ear-piercing scream that shattered the mirror across the room. She broke free from the ropes with impossible strength and attacked Baba, lifting the old man off the ground by his throat. Fatoumata remembered the charm Baba had given her earlier, a black talisman made of obsidian and blessed leather. With tears streaming down her face, she lunged forward and slipped it over Amina's neck. The effect was instant. Amina dropped Baba and collapsed to the floor, convulsing. Thick black smoke poured from her mouth, forming the vague shape of a woman in a tattered red dress before dissolving into nothing. The room fell deathly silent. Amina woke up 3 days later in the hospital, weak but herself again. The crimson gown was gone, burned by Baba in a secret ritual outside town. When Fatumata asked Tund about the dress later, the tailor simply shrugged. "Must have been a bad batch," he said with an empty smile. These things happen. But that night, in the back room of his shop, the same man on the motorcycle delivered another black duffel. And somewhere in Willow Creek, another bride was about to fall in love with a beautiful red dress. What would you do if the perfect wedding dress started whispering to you at night? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Would you still wear it? If you love real horror stories based on the supernatural, make sure you're subscribed to Eerie Narratives with notifications on. We post new terrifying stories every week. Turn on the bell. You don't want to miss what's coming next. Because sometimes the scariest things are the ones we choose to bring home ourselves. In the sleepy bayou town of Bayou Rouge, Louisiana, everyone said Miss SI's Antiques was the place for something old, something borrowed, and sometimes something cursed. But when the antique wedding veil arrived wrapped in yellowed lace and smelling faintly of grave dirt, even ESI felt a chill. Zara Okoro was 26, a nurse at the local hospital, and just 3 weeks away from marrying her high school sweetheart, Jamal Freeman. She wanted a fairy tale wedding more than anything. On a humid Thursday afternoon, Zara stepped into the little antique shop on Magnolia Street, looking for something borrowed. ESI, the shop owner, smiled strangely when she saw her. "I have the perfect thing for you, child," she said, pulling out a long white box. This veil belonged to a bride in 1927. They say she never got to walk down the aisle, but she's been waiting ever since. The veil was exquisite, delicate ivory lace with tiny pearls that seemed to glow with their own light. Zara tried it on in the dusty mirror at the back of the shop. The moment the lace touched her hair, the temperature in the room dropped. "I'll take it," Zara whispered, unable to look away from her reflection. "Yes, I charged her only $40. Consider it a wedding gift," she said with a knowing smile. That night, Zara hung the veil on her vanity mirror. At 2:33 a.m., she woke to soft whispering. It sounded like a woman crying and laughing at the same time. She told herself it was just the wind through the old house. 2 days later was the rehearsal dinner at her mother Aisha's house. Zara decided to wear the veil with her rehearsal dress. When she walked into the backyard where everyone was gathered, the chatter died instantly. "Zara, you look beautiful," Jamal said, but his smile faltered. "That veil, it's something else." As the night progressed, Zara's personality began to shift. She spoke less. Her movements became unnaturally graceful, almost floating. When her younger cousin asked to try on the veil, Zara snapped at her with shocking venom. "Don't you ever touch what's mine." Her eyes looked glassy, distant. Later, when Jamal pulled her aside to ask if she was okay, Zara grabbed his collar and whispered in a voice that wasn't entirely hers. "You think you can have me?" She never got to keep her man. "Why should you?" Jamal stepped back, visibly shaken. By the time the rehearsal ended, things had gotten worse. Zara stood in the middle of the living room, veil still on, staring at nothing. Suddenly she began speaking in an old, faded Southern accent that no one in her Ghanaian-American family had ever heard. "I waited so long, in the cold ground, waiting for my wedding day." Then she smiled, a wide, unnatural smile that showed too many teeth. "And now I get to have it." She attacked her own mother, Aisha, clawing at her with nails that had grown longer and sharper in minutes. Family members had to pin Zara down while she screamed and laughed hysterically. Aisha called Baba Kwame, a respected spiritual elder from their community who lived deep in the bayou. When Baba Kwame entered the room where Zara was now tied to the bed, he took one look at the veil and shook his head. "This is no ordinary spirit," he said gravely. "This is the bride of Bayou Rouge, a woman murdered by her groom on their wedding night in 1927. She has been stealing bodies ever since, trying to finish her wedding, and then killing the groom. The exorcism started at midnight. Baba placed white candles and poured libations of rum and herbs around the bed. The moment he began the prayers in his native tongue mixed with Old Creole, Zara's body started convulsing violently. The pearls on the veil began bleeding red. "Remove the veil."
Baba shouted.
The second Aisha touched it, Zara let out a scream that cracked the windows. She broke the ropes and levitated several inches off the bed, the veil whipping around her like it was alive. She attacked Baba Kwame, slamming him against the wall with supernatural strength. "You will not take my wedding day from me again." Aisha remembered the small protection charm Baba had given her earlier. A small pouch containing blessed roots, graveyard dirt, and a mirror shard meant to reflect evil back on itself. With tears in her eyes, she rushed forward and pressed the charm directly against Zara's forehead while the veil was still on. The effect was explosive. Zara dropped to the floor, seizing. Thick black smoke poured from her mouth and nostrils, forming the shape of a woman in an old-fashioned wedding dress with a noose around her neck. The ghostly figure shrieked once before shattering into nothing. The ivory veil turned gray and disintegrated into dust on the floor. Zara woke up in the hospital 4 days later, remembering almost nothing. The wedding went ahead veil-free, and she married Jamal under a bright Louisiana sun. But 3 weeks later, ESI's Antiques received another mysterious package, wrapped in the same yellowed lace. And somewhere in Bayou Rouge, another excited bride is about to go looking for something borrowed. Would you wear an antique veil if it made you feel like the most beautiful bride in the world? Let me know in the comments what you would do. If you can't get enough of these bone-chilling real-feel horror stories, make sure you're subscribed to Eerie Narratives and have notifications turned on. New terrifying tales drop every week. Hit that bell, because the next bride might be closer than you think.